I know I'm the last thing before far better speaker ensued. So I will be I'll be provocative. I'll try to keep it going. You've been sitting for a while. But I'm going to start with the pop quiz. So are you guys ready? You guys ready for pop quiz? Okay, without looking at your phones, could someone recite 7 phone numbers from memory? Without your childhood phone number. Usually everyone has that one. Can anyone do that? Right now, pop quiz. You get a free prize. You can do 7?
I think I can. 409-771.
Why can't you validate it? But it's a rarity. I think most people in this room
I
cannot.
was like, I'm ready.
Well,
Because I asked the next question, can you do 7 addresses right off your top of your memory? And my point there is our dependency on technology is obvious. I'm a Chicagoan, diehard Chicagoan. I named my son Jordan for heaven's sakes. I used to be a tour guide downtown, but I still rely on Waze downtown, and I live downtown. So it's just one of those things that we have to come to grips that we are dependent on technology and digital, and AI is unfortunately no different. But what I want to do in the time, and the way I kind of put this presentation together, I'm not going to read the deck. That's not my job. You're very literate people, very knowledgeable people. But what I'll do is it will be a takeaway if you want to use it. I'm going to highlight certain things. And this is fresh in my head because, again, I just graduated about a month ago from USC. And the whole point of my dissertation, I started talking about the digital divide. I wanted to address the issue that I've seen for 27 years in IT, where I'll go to a conference and someone assume that I'm the coffee guy. Or someone hand me their valet key, right? It's happened more than once. And so I thought maybe I could address that getting my doctorate. But I realized it's not just about the digital divide, it's more about where AI is going. And then I read a book during the Lit Review called Pessimism and Promise by Dr. Payal Arora. Absolutely amazing book, and made you think about AI in a different way. Instead of me doing the Eeyore thing, anyone know who Eeyore is, the character? Eeyore, woe is me. I wanted to be more positive. Like, what can we do when we get out of this doldrum on where is it going well? So I studied 7 use cases, 5 of them in the Global South, and that's kind of what this is based off as well. Where is it going well so when we get out of this muck that we're in, because there's a little bit of a muck, we could actually kind of use examples of where it's going well. And one thing I do want to premise before I move on is I do have my undergrad from University of Illinois, any Champaign-Urbana people, it's usually rare, in finance and economics. So I'm a capitalist. I studied it, I understand it, but I do think it's dominating the AI conversation, today anyway. So I'll go through and kind of go through some of these slides, not ad nauseum, and again, you'll get a copy of this if you choose to. So what the business sees is what you see on that left-hand column, a new speed of experimentation. The business sees this as a shortcut. Think about Candyland taking that little rainbow trail. They say, oh, I could bypass CIOs, I could bypass this could get it going. That is one of the things I'm hearing from my colleagues. And again, I was a CIO at Toyota, CIO at HP, farmers, I work for Governor Pritzker, so I kind of have a view of kind of different industries. And I know some of you have been in IT for a while, and so you understand what I'm talking about. They also see it's a lower cost of barrier. What we see is integration opportunities, so we see good things in it in the middle column. But we do see model risk, shadow AI, I'll talk about that in a second. And how do we take demos into industrialized capabilities? 80% of AI models and things are failing today. That's the metric that everyone keeps on hearing, but we keep on comparing ourselves to those 80%. We want to be like those 80%. Why? So we have to really think of why is it working and why is it not working. So I'll go to my core thesis. I truly think there's a reversal. So 20%, this is my take, of AI is within the technology world. 80% of it is business transformation. I'll say it again, business transformation. I think that's what's being missed right now. Because as a CIO, CTO, reporting to the board and all that, they also, Ron, what are you going to do about AI? Ron, what are you going to do about AI? So I created an AI steerco, and I put more business people on than AI people. And the one example, there's 2 things I always remind them. When agentic AI comes in, and we create an agentic recruiter, a recruiter in the recruiting department, and it's an agentic AI model, are you going to ask Ron Guerrier, the CIO, to make that agentic AI work? No, you should have someone recruiting who owns that virtual person. And they're not quite getting that yet. They assume it's incumbent upon me. And that's one of the things. They also think AI is going to pay for itself. It's so simple, a caveman can do it. Plug it in, right? I worked at Farmers, so I use the Geico commercial joke. But the point there is, it's not just a plug and play. And there's a fallacy that AI is plug and play. So there is a battle happening between technologists, traditional technologists, and business transformation folks. I truly believe it's more business transformation. We definitely have a play to do this. We are IT people, professionals, but we also have to make sure the business understands their responsibility. And I can go from our perspective. So some of the things that came out of the study I did. Pilot addiction. Too many proofs of concepts. We're getting stuck in that. The fallacy of putting good money after bad. Sunk cost fallacy, it keeps on happening. Well, I'm going to put another $1,000, another $2,000, and it's going to make it work. No, what you should do is put it aside and kaizen it and learn from those failures. And we're not comfortable enough to do that. And there's a serious fear of missing out right now. FOMO, as some kids used to call it. I don't think it's FOMO still a thing. But yeah, okay, so it's really happening, it's prevalent. Shadow AI. There's a slide I have later, which I'll skip now. Vibe coding. Can I see show of hands how many people know vibe coding? Vibe coding. When SharePoint started, you might remember that. We had 1, 2, like bunny rabbits, we had 1,000 of them. And all of a sudden, it's like, who owns SharePoint? Well, I thought you did. Remember? Remember that moment? Here we go again. So we got to be very careful on that. Find the automation. Keep humans accountable. We'll talk about it in a second. And enable recourse. You should have humans be able to go back and say, AI, you are wrong. AI, that doesn't make sense anymore. And in the world that's so dynamic right now with regulations that are changing, you have to be able to challenge it each and every day. In the great state of Illinois, all the surrounding states have different data privacy rules. There's 50 different data privacy rules to some degree in the United States today. Maryland just made a change. So we had to go into our CRM and make a change specific to Maryland. And so AI will actually see those differences and think differently per state. We have to be very intelligent about it. So the last one on there, you have to be able to go back and review it before we fall in love with the answers. I will skip that. For pilot portfolio, I talked about that. Voice. And this is the last slide. I think this is the last slide? Yes. We'll go to after this. We'll go to the fireside chat. What I need everyone to understand is AI, I'm not a fatalist. I believe there's something amazing with AI. And I agree, it started when Alan Turing in 1950 had an idea. Unfortunately, the technology was right there. My biggest concern is without governance, without proper governance, and think about the humanity of things, AI will actually ultimately one day become a huge issue. That's just my thought. So I want to make sure we get ahead of it and we govern it properly today. And if you remember the individual who won the Nobel Prize for AI, Sir Hinton, he was in a conference recently, actually it was a year ago, but he's been saying this repeatedly, his biggest regret is the progress he did in AI, and he believes that we need to have something called a mother bot. We need a bot that sits over AI, that when one day AI knows it's more intelligent than us, it will be actually benevolent towards us. And that's a scary thought, that this individual who got a prize for this feels that we have to make sure we put the toothpaste back in the bottle where we can. So again, I would love to introduce or bring up Rick, and we'll have a conversation on some of these findings, some other things. So Rick, if you join us after you set the camera.
Thank you. All right. All right, microphone is on. Thank you, Ron.
Yes.
So basically, your whole message is pro-innovation, but also practical. Govern the data, challenge these models, put boundaries on the automation, keep humans not just in the loop, but accountable, and recourse for challenging the outcomes and challenging the interpretation of those outcomes as well. And this is not a scenario that you solve once and then it runs along perfectly. It needs tending, and it needs tenders.
Why do I feel like I'm in Haiti right now? It's so hot here. Thanks, London. Go.
Right. Well, it's climate is traveling around and stinging people. I'm not the only one who probably raised an eyebrow when you mentioned vendor mystique. You wrote a pretty interesting article on Information Week, and it premiered on May 15th. You can look it up. It's called What AI Must Learn from Roosevelt, the first Roosevelt, Conservation, and 1929. We can't get into all of those connotations here, but you said in the article that companies are becoming too passive in their AI adoption. Yes, they're all rushing. Some of them are challenging the value, but there's a passive march to it, and is a dependency on AI vendors really masquerading as AI strategy for companies right now, and how do we break that dependence?
I think it's accountability and ownership. I know we use the A word a lot, accountability over and over again, but it really does start at the board, and it starts with the C-suite. But also, I think we just need to show the data and kind of really litigate why it's important that they need to slow down to go fast. And the argument I always make is that the fastest cars on the road, Indy cars, whatever, they have the biggest brake kits, right? I ride a Ducati, I'm into speed, I have issues, I know that. But the brakes are important because it allows me to go fast and turn and be more agile. And governance is that. And we keep on skipping governance because it seems like it's the blocker. But in a time right now where it's just infancy, we need it more than ever. And there's another op-ed I did, it's calling AI as a child. It's growing and it's learning from us. And if we don't teach it values and all those things, it's literally just going to do what's right or what it thinks it's right. Mm-hmm. And during my interview, so when I was doing my research, I asked it, give me 10 books on AI. It made, it gave me 10. Then I said, give me the ones that have an ISDN number, which have a publishing number. Mm-hmm. 5 of them had a publishing number. So it made up 5 more, right? Because it wants to please me as dad, or whatever it is, right? So we have to be very conscious that AI is not correct, and we do have the challenges. And organizations feel, and Save the Children as an example, I'll use it because I work there, we're constantly looking for the next dollar. We have to, because we're trying to help kids in need, right? So if another organization is using AI, we're going to think, well, we have to use it because they're using it. Well, the question is, are they using it right? And shouldn't we have an obligation to do it right as well? So I think those are the things that we have to keep in mind, that we need to be in control of this.
And that the mystique is that vendors are figuring this out as they go, and we get the perfect result. And so we just adopt it.
Yes, and we as internal IT need to do a better job of evangelizing storytelling. Because I've been in meetings where I've missed the meeting, and they show me slide 12. Slide 1 through 11 was a vendor discussion on how they convince the C-suite something. My job is to execute it. I'm already behind the 8 ball.
Right.
So I have to do a better job as an IT professional to tell a story that they will also consume and trust my statement as much as the vendor. Vendors add tremendous visibility. We sit in a bubble sometimes in IT, but we have to validate that. And that's something we always forget to do sometimes.
Okay. Now, part of AI governance is risk management. AI has a risk profile that we're increasingly familiar with. But I'd argue that trust is the biggest corporate risk when it comes to AI, either having too much trust or too little trust. So in the second scenario, you can put in these tools and people don't trust them, and they won't use them, or they won't use the output. Then you can have people who are over-reliant on AI tools because it saves them some time. They're not validating, they're not taking the time to validate the output they're getting. So there's too much trust in that situation. So you found in your research for your doctorate that AI governance needs to be more than policy language. It needs to be lived. So what does that look like? I know it involves humans, accountability, and being in the loop. But in your empirical research, what does lived governance look like versus governance on paper?
So we all know what a persona is, right? You create a persona for an energy company. By the way, your CIO is amazing, Talvis, I know. It's Jamaican, I'm Haitian, with others. As I look at you, remember, say hi to me. But we have personas for every person, and we should understand and ask the right people the right question. And I can't validate the recruiter statement I made earlier. I'm not a recruiter, so we should go to the recruiting organization. Is this still relevant in today's world? And is it relevant in the U.S.? But is it also relevant in Brazil? Is it relevant in Europe? Because we can't cookie cutter AI. There's another learning from it. AI is applicable to some geographies and cultures, and we can't forget that. The last thing I'll say on that is data models. Most data models in the medical world are based off of white men 35 to 55. They don't have much information on myself, and this is not negative, it's just a fact pattern. And so we have to go back and say, well, if Ron needs medical care, or Ron's wife, who happens to be Filipino, needs medical care, what are the sample sizes for that person? So go to those people. We should not be reluctant to do so. You should ask those questions.
And what's just a great example that you saw from a particular company where the governance was right in the face and everyone was aware of it and it inspired trust? Oh,
well, one of them, and I'll pivot to the legal profession right now. So one of the companies I studied was a company called Justice Text. Very great company. The founders are from U Chicago, biased. And the idea here is they're going to use AI and digital to help defendants look over body cam footage or look over court documents, whatever. And from that, they could validate and say, okay, this is exactly what you said when you said it, or it's not what you said when you said it. And it's actually been moving things forward. There's a level of confidence with the data.
Yeah.
But the problem with it is it's not a cookie cutter. That situation with Justice Text will not work in all environments. So what we need to do in those cases is probably have a phone a friend. Create a community of advisors that are aware in certain areas and call them up to the mic and say, hey, what do you think about this? Will Justice Tech work in a nonprofit field? Will Justice Tech work in other fields? We should be comfortable to do that and ask questions.
Between our organizations.
Between our organizations or otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this particular case, I have a phone a friend that I would like to, is it appropriate to ask the phone a friend, or would you want me to do that?
No, I'd say if you have someone who can add some insights to this,
Yeah, I can do that.
potentially from a different generation, because the younger people look at AI differently than we do. We look at it as something to be institutionally governed. It takes time. Young people just want to redirect it, apply it, make sure someone's accountable, and fix the problem.
Yeah. So I do have a question. Are there any lawyers in the room? Any attorneys, by chance? Young lady, could you please step up? Could you please come here? I'd love to ask you a question.
Preferably under 30.
Under 30, under 30, yes.
Well under. Thank
Well,
you.
under 30. Okay.
And introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Ron Guerrier. I'm sure you guys saw me in the picture in the presentation earlier. I'm an attorney based out of Washington, D.C., but likely not the type of attorney you guys deal with, or so I would hope. I work in criminal defense, and basically I work at a nonprofit for folks representing individuals who are 25 or under at the time of sentencing and have served at least 15 years of their offense. I'm trying to bring them home a little bit earlier, so my brain is wired a lot differently than y'all's, but happy to be here.
Excellent. And what's an example where, obviously, your dad's focus was on quite a bit on AI's impact on equity, because we already had a situation where communities and populations were being digitally redlined. They were being there were different rules for sentencing for criminal activity. There were different accesses to credit and banking as well. And so the fear, and you've got documented examples of this, is that AI is just going to automate that discrimination and that lack of equity for those exact same populations who don't have the finances or power to fight against it or to use the recourse that you're saying needs to be built into our governance. What can AI do to undo that scenario?
Or can.
Yeah, so I became a lawyer not because I love the law or the Constitution by any means. I became an attorney because I really wanted to help people and really just tell people stories. And I'm sure you guys know AI is very efficient and can help you get to a certain solution a lot quicker, but a lot of the times it misses that humanity aspect that you guys have been talking about throughout this panel. So a lot of times, in those one-on-one conversations with clients, families, and friends, there's a lot of things that AI or a computer that human connection that it just will never really match up to, from telling my clients about races I've won or just talking about football games, things of that nature. Those little things are things that technology, I think, will maybe get to one day, hopefully not, but it's that human connection that can't be fostered through AI. So I would say we don't use AI just because we use a lot of sensitive material, and at the end of the day, the fun part is telling someone's story, and I don't want to give that fun part to a computer. And I think that's something that at least my quote-unquote generation has viewed as a model for efficiency purposes, but efficiency isn't always the way to go. At least when you're dealing with clients who are people, and we don't really represent businesses or corporations. We're dealing with individuals who are even only a few years older than me. So, AI isn't on their forefront or mindset, so that's not something that we prioritize either.
I want to pivot back to one last question for your dad. You mentioned that AI is a child that's growing in our organizations that we are putting boundaries around, hopefully, and training. And AI doesn't get better just because the model gets smarter. It gets better based on how we use it and how we interact with it. So what would you say, one thing that we can do back in IT to help raise that child right? One action.
Well,
And you don't have to say that we did that for you.
she's John Wick. She can clear the room with one bullet. She's just, yeah. By the way, my son's also getting a master's degree in AI from Purdue. He'll graduate soon. So I have one child who is more on the kind of help humanity. Not to say Jordan's not. That's not saying it's Jordan. But he is just a technical propeller.
Oh,
It's just, that's his space. But to answer that question, I think what we need to do in IT is, first and foremost, just provide a level of governance, but you have to win the room. You have to win your CEO over, you gotta win the board over, you gotta explain to them it's imperfect. And there's this fallacy that it's perfect and it's ready to go. It's not. The second thing I'll say broadly when it comes to that is that we have to go back to the data. I said a little bit earlier, I'll say it again. Our data was never perfect, and what makes us think now that AI is here is gonna be perfect? So let's have an honest conversation about we need to get data to a place of comfort. And we're not quite there yet. So those two things I think are super important. And I think what SustainableIT could do, and all of you in the room, and I do want to pause, and thank you for being in the room, because all of you guys care. You give a damn. That is a powerful statement itself. So thank you for being here. Is how can we make sure that we do it right so we can hand it off to the next generation, something that they can work with. And one of my biggest concerns is that there's this world of capitalism and trillion-dollar valuations that we're in right now. Is that what we really should be focused on? I think we should be focused on the future and, of course, this planet that we're all sitting on.
You don't want to inherit a bunch of AI mistakes to fix. You want to use it for positive advancement.
Ideally, yes.
And well, that's our goal. So thank you both for joining.
Thanks, Rich.